I would like to just introduce them by name and allow them to give a little backstory on themselves, as Ian just did. But Stephanie, Max, and Bill, and I am Greg. So if we want to go down the line, kind of give a backstory on what we're doing, how we got here, and just chat.
Let's do it.
Sounds good. Want me to start?
Sure.
Excellent. So, hello, Stephanie Howard, and I started my career over 25 years ago in the footwear design space. So I've been a design director at companies such as Nike and New Balance. I've worked at Reebok. I worked for brands as a consultant in innovation, Timberland, the North Face, and Vans. So a lot of the brands you're familiar with, and designing physical products. And then a little over a year ago, I met the co-founder of what we now formed, the company called Endstate. And he has, his name is Bennett Cullen, and he has a background in blockchain. And his first company used smart contracts and NFTs to secure trademark rights, and they were purchased by GoDaddy. So he was a lifelong sneakerhead, thought about how this technology of Web3 and sneakers could really make a great match, and connected with me after seeing me on a webinar. And in May of 2021, we started Endstate, which is a lifestyle brand that combines the physical with the digital. And what we do is unlock connections to things that people are passionate about. We're doing that mostly by making sneakers right now. We have several drops that we've made. We've already created the NFTs, delivered physical products to customers. And we do some that are charitable drops. The ones I'm wearing right now are for the Wells Remy Crowther Charitable Trust. And that's, please do look up Wells Crowther if you haven't heard of him before, but he's a hero from September 11th, who really sacrificed his life to save others. And his mother has formed a trust over the years in his name to reward academic and athletic excellence in youth who serve their communities. And so we built a sneaker around the theme of red bandana, which is a big part of his story. And there's a big red bandana football game at Boston College every year in celebration of his heroism. So that's one type of drop that we do. And then another is collaborating with creators like artists and athletes. So we have a drop that will go live this weekend on Saturday with a collaboration with Devontae Smith, who's if you watched Monday Night Football, you'll know he's a wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, amazing athlete on field, amazing person off field. And we are collaborating with him as our first athlete to really tell his story, and then to show how NFTs aren't just a digital art piece, right? We'll make a physical sneaker and we make a digital twin of that sneaker, but the NFT is going to unlock experiences outside of that. And so that includes, your tickets being your sneakers with the NFC chip inside them are a ticket to meeting Devontae in person. And your NFT, when he gets his first touchdown, you're gonna get airdropped gift certificate to get a cheesesteak. So every time he wins, you win. And so we have a whole bunch of on-field performance sort of milestones that he is going to make. And then because you own the NFT, the sneaker just keeps getting more and more valuable beyond the physical product. And so that's how my career has gone from just creating physical products to now sort of understanding how you can build amazing experiences beyond that.
GM, I'm Max. I've been working in this space since 2016. I started off by running a cryptocurrency mining company. A year later, I had my own warehouse space. I started it with my brother. And then we ran that until early 2020 and shut it down. In early 2018, a lot of people wanted to liquidate all of a sudden. Everyone thought the price of crypto was going to zero. And then we kind of held out for a little bit. And 2020 was really our last year holding out. After that, I did some consulting work for a bunch of different protocols, helping them to add value to their governance token by implementing fees in their ecosystem or restructuring their ecosystem to add additional value to their users. And then soon after that, I did some work for the government. And then I met my co-founder there. And we left to start Solon. And our product will be coming out, if I had to guess, hopefully Q1 of 2023 at the latest. And we've designed a decentralized operating system to interface with Ethereum and Layer 2s. And the whole goal of anything we focus on developing at Solon Labs is to improve user friendliness, to make the interaction with the blockchain a lot more seamless, and also to reduce the financial barrier of entry associated with decentralization.
Cool. All right, I guess I'm last up. Hi, everyone. I'm Bill Ramos. I'm the founder of Dungeon Miners. As was said, I also lead up the development for the Boston Celtics in the digital space. Not here as a representative of them, just putting that out there as just me and my project. But I'm very much overwhelmed at how many cool things people are building in the space and some of the cool stuff everyone's doing. I feel like I'm underqualified to speak about some of these things, but my project, Dungeon Miners, takes a unique take on the NFT space where you have to mine for your NFT, generates a random hash, which then combines with other people's NFTs hashes to create this game that runs itself as people play. So it's a very complicated, non-fun thing to talk about how it works, but if you want to check it out, dungeonminers.com. Back to you.
I will say real quick, I've played Bill's game before, and it's a lot of fun.
Sweet. Yeah, appreciate that. But happy to just come here, talk about crypto in general, and learn from everyone who's here, because there's so much opportunity. I think that sometimes we try to fit crypto into everything, but I do think there are some projects that are really, really cool applications of the technology that I'm excited to learn more about, see what kind of opportunities are out there, so we can kind of continue to, as a group, as a community, build some of these new things together.
Cool. So, bit of a background on me. I was a barber for 7 years, and while in that profession, business cards were a thing that was important for us. And my brother and I, one night, were kind of just chatting about making that experience better. It was really a selfish conversation, like for myself, but it ended up turning into a much bigger idea of truly digitizing the business card, as opposed to some of the digital business cards that are out there already. And so we began that, and over the last maybe little less than a year and a half, I have been all in on the Web3 space. And so naturally learning the things that I have and meeting people, the idea continued to grow and integrate these new Web3 aspects into them. And so our plan is to make a truly digital business card that looks and feels like what we're used to already, but then adds in similar aspects, kind of like Endstate's shoes being a ticket. When we have an NFT drop, that would also be your ticket into events that we have, whether that's our own networking events or co-sponsoring other companies' events. We plan on working with some of the bigger artists in the space to do that, so that it's actually a piece of art that doubles as, let's say, the background of your business card. So things of that nature. One of the things that we're really excited about is the idea of allowing our users to actually own their data. So when we get approached on data, our users would actually have the opportunity to benefit from that, and not us as the company per se. And so that's what I am working on with Stay Busy. It's really trying to seamlessly make networking more efficient, especially with job securement. And then there's the environmental side that really took us back when we started to see the kind of waste that goes into that industry, and the kind of environmental harm that comes from that. So being able to eliminate actually printing of cards, and then on the back end, every one of our paid users would be responsible for planting trees. That's one of the main drivers into what we're doing also. So with that being said, I would like to ask you guys, coming into this space as leaders, as founders, what has been some of the main hurdles that were kind of different than, you know, the Web 2 route, or especially, you know, with you coming from Nike and New Balance and all of those companies, what are some of the hurdles, and then like what are some of the benefits that you've been able to utilize being in this space?
Mm-hmm. I think when you say hurdles, I don't know if it's complexities more than hurdles in our world, right? Because I have to, you know, create, design, source physical products, but that's been done for a long time, and I've seen it done at the big brands. So I was familiar with that side of things, but the you know, the complexity of then making sure that the, you know, the NFT is created, and in our case, a digital twin, you know, rendering of the physical product, and then the innovation that we have to create behind what will those experiences be, right? We want this to be something much bigger than, you know, just the digital art in the physical product, but the experiential side of things. So there's a lot of just complexity into creating what each of those, you know, kind of rewards and perks are. Building a community from scratch, that's its own complexity. Building a brand from scratch, whether you're in this space or not, I think is a complex thing to do, and to do it right, and not to overhype, but to make sure that you grow an audience and a community who's, you know, who's kind of supporting you along with your growth. So those are some, I think it's just been the additional layers of complexity, and of course, you know, working with engineering and making sure, you know, everything's correct in the smart contracts before each of our drops. I think we're on our 5th drop now, so we're getting better with each one, with solving how to plan ahead. I think the pros, I think in my case, the pros of being in a startup it's just our ability to move really, really quickly. And as I said, I was at some of the legacy brands. It takes about 18 months almost every time to get a sneaker to market, from design to market. And that's with, you know, existing supply chains. And I think just having a new frame of mind in the way we're going about each of our drops, and you know, just kind of utilizing the network that I built over my career, we've been able to move in 1/3 of that time. And so I feel like doing things differently is allowing us to move a lot faster. And that is a big benefit for us, because every time we do a new drop, we learn from that drop, but then we also, you know, kind of have even more proof of concept, to the point where we're signing, you know, like major names and athletes, and talking to artists and big brands and right. things like that. So yeah, I think the complexities are what make us interesting, and then the speed sort of gives everybody the proof that we can do it. Right. But all of that's very, very different than the world of corporate, you know, structure, which is where I had spent a lot of my time. And
so you said you guys have done 5 drops.
Yeah.
And in the past, each one would have taken like 18 months separately.
Yeah, if I was you know, in the traditional right. legacy brand without an NFT.
Right. And Endstate has been around for
a year and 5 months, I think. Right. Yeah, we started May 2021. So you guys released
5 shoes in the time that it would have been one.
Right. Exactly.
That's pretty amazing.
I think one of the things that gets kind of mentioned ad nauseum is community, right? In mm-hmm. Web3, it's all community-based. That is, I think, for me, has been the largest challenge in trying to get more attention on dungeon miners. Is community building really is an art form, right? And it takes the right kind of personality to engage with your community. And you know, I'm a project of one, right? I am the dungeon miners persona, right? So having a full-time job where I don't really have all the time to focus solely on dungeon miners, one of my largest challenges is just like, how do I continually deliver this hungry, or something to these hungry audiences who always want something fast, right? I think one thing I've noticed in Web3 is everyone wants something now. And that hype kind of building is kind of intrinsic to the space in general. How many projects have you seen where they promise, you know, that your computer is going to turn on and start printing money, and we're going to launch at Q3 or whatever, and it never really comes to fruition, right? But the hype gets thousands of people rallied around that project, the idea of the project, and then when it comes to delivering a product, falls flat, right? I took the opposite approach where I built this thing and then I announced it. I'm like, oh, hey, here, it exists. And then it's been a slow trickle, slowly building of people coming in, getting excited about the project, but like they all want more now, right? And it's like, how do we continue to engage with audiences and keep them interested when their attention span is like a goldfish to like re-engage with us and kind of help support the product. And this is, you know, my project is unique in that it's kind of like a it's a perpetual game that runs itself, so I don't have to really do too much to make the core part of it run. But in another business like Endstate, and with what you're launching in Solon Labs, like how do you keep those people engaged, right? That's, I think, the main thing. And on my regular, like back with the Celtics stuff, like we don't have to fight for attention, right? Like that just happens. So the other thing there is like, how do we deliver something? And this is, I know a lot of brands across the space are looking at this. Like, how do we deliver something that is true to whatever brand it is, that is an established, you know, Web 2 traditional brand, and fit into this new landscape that is ripe with opportunities? Like those aren't small problems to solve, right? But I think that's why we're all here to try to figure out, like, as small builders looking at larger companies, like how can we fit into their roadmap? How do we become part of this ecosystem or bridge the gap for them? People are going to solve that, and I think maybe some people in the audience are working on it now. But those are some of the things that I'm thinking about from both sides of it, from a small studio in myself, and then larger scale, like a bigger brand. How do we take the technology of blockchain and use it in an authentic way that like actually helps the business? Yeah,
I definitely agree with you, Bill. For me though, like I see this whole sense of community that has really come to life, especially in the NFT world and even in the crypto world, where, hey, now I can have ownership in this company, or I own this JPEG and we can all bond over it, as less of a hurdle and more of like an amazing benefit. Because for me personally, I feel like this decentralized sense of community has eliminated many hurdles. So I created a Twitter specifically for the NFT world. And because of the decentralized nature of NFT communities and crypto communities, I was able to go on Twitter with absolutely not knowing anyone, hop into random Twitter spaces, talk to random people, learn, and then eventually get up on those spaces and start speaking myself. And you know, after doing that for a few months, I turned 0 followers into 15,000, right? And I wouldn't have been able to do that without this decentralized sense of community, right? This idea that, hey, we can all bond over these things. Everyone wants to learn, right? We're all in this place. We all want to learn. We all want to see cool new technology. We're excited. We're not at the level where like anything is really advanced enough where it's an improvement over anything that already exists in the Web 2 space. The only real new innovation that exists in, I would say, in the NFT space specifically today is this revolutionized sense of community. So for me, like, it has been the opposite of a hurdle. I was even able to crowdsource the original funding I needed to start my project by selling NFTs, right? Like, at the time, I was probably 20 years old, 21 years old. I didn't even need to show anyone my face. I didn't even need to give anyone my name. So there's gonna be no personal bias against me. They don't know anything about me. And I can just put out technical facts. I write, I portray, I go on Twitter and I pitch to people, and it's purely 100% about me and if people see any sense of value. So we sold roughly $400,000 worth of NFTs. We sold all of our NFTs. And then after that, because another cool thing about this decentralized space is I didn't know anything about like how to start a company or how to like get funding or to do all these things. I wasn't connected with VCs. I didn't grow up in like a very wealthy environment. But because of this decentralized space, I was also able to meet people through Twitter. And then we started the Boston DAO and all these other groups. And through there, I was able to meet with people in person. And that's how I met my VCs. So we did a pre-seed round that we closed out probably about 2 months ago for $600,000 in exchange for 6% of our governance tokens. So like none of this would have happened. I wouldn't even have this option, nor would I be in the place I am today without Web3. So personally, I think it eliminates a lot of barriers.
Do you think that's sustainable, or do you think that's a byproduct of it being like in its infancy and everyone wanting to get a slice of like the .com bubble essentially happening in NFT?
I would say everything is about supply and demand. So like if you look at the NFT space, let's say 8 months ago, right? Like there was a decent amount of supply, nothing too crazy. People are dropping NFT projects every day, but most of those didn't even get the light of day. But there was a lot of demand. And most of these people were spending money that they probably shouldn't spend anyway. But a lot of this was driven by hype, right? It's one of those things where, yes, while it can be cool and beneficial and fun and like everyone's on a good vibe, it's also not necessarily the best thing for an ecosystem, right? There's always the downside. Eventually, the music's gonna slow down or stop before it starts again. So, you know, in any space, yes, there's good and bad things. But for me personally, I see this space as a space today, right now, that I can create things in and be able to receive as much attention that I feel appropriate, that I deem myself. I don't have to be dependent on other people. And that's a huge thing for me, that I can go out and it's 100% up to me, the man I look at in the mirror every morning, how much work I want to put in that day, how many Twitter spaces I want to attend, how many people I want to make a connection with. But yes, today, the audience is a lot slimmer and a lot less people are interested because people aren't making crazy money anymore. But you can still go out and talk to people.
Yeah, I mean, I see that, like, the overall audience is kind of shrinking. I think it'll probably inflate again at some point. But it's interesting, like, for how much longer will VCs be throwing money at anything, right? And maybe it'll continue in perpetuity. I think the space will evolve where it's not just going to be JPEGs, right? And I think that as builders, right, we build on top of, I mean, we either build the infrastructure that people will build on top of, or we take the infrastructure of a blockchain that exists and build on top of that and try to kind of continue to evolve that ecosystem. I think we're still, you know, I hate, well, we're early, right? We're early in the development of the technology. And I think that there will be, you know, blockchains that make it and don't, and ones that haven't launched yet that will further propel the idea of the blockchain further. And then how will people kind of tackle that next step? What other quirks will that blockchain have? If it's popular, people will find a way to milk it for profit. But like, how do we build something really cool and genuine that people want to engage with? I think you're in a unique space with your physical stuff. It's just, it makes sense to bridge the gap between Web3 natives and people who just like physical goods like shoes, to kind of bring them all together. Yeah. Like, you have an opportunity with Endstate to really kind of ride the wave and bring something new to people that they haven't seen before.
Yeah, I think a lot of our focus is not on people who are already into NFTs. I mean, yay, they know about us and we're excited about that, but we are definitely focused on what the utility of the NFT is, right? And so that's creating these connections that people are passionate about. And that's, you know, delivering on these experiences that give value beyond the physical product. Plus, we're making a really cool physical product in a coveted space that's sneakers, collectible, limited edition, designed by, you know, like a world-class design team. But I do think that the focus, you know, for some of the hurdles that you're talking about is the education of all the people that don't understand what NFTs are, because there's so much more utility beyond what they know they are. And there's a lot of stories being told to them right now. And so, I hope that our company is one that can, you know, just be an example of that there is this utility built into the connection to the blockchain, and it can be used for all these, you know, experiences beyond a product. And that's part of how you build a community, right? If we bring everybody together who's a Devontae Smith fan, and then in 2 months bring everybody together who's a, you know, fan of a very famous musician, and then an artist, and then we're bringing all these people into the ecosystem of being an NFT, sort of owner, but they're not necessarily in it for the money. They're in it for the experience that they get out of it. And so that's going to open up the world to the technology in a way that a lot of people are closed off to now, I think.
Yeah, I personally don't believe we'll ever get to the point where we see like a mass of individuals actively interacting with NFTs and blockchain and crypto until the technology is so seamless that people don't realize they're using it, right? Like it needs to be an additional benefit. It needs to bring an additional value proposition to our current world that doesn't exist today. Something you can't replicate in Web 2, right? Otherwise, what's the real point? It's more of this gimmicky thing that we're all kind of playing with and saying maybe we'll do something with it one day. But the real value proposition today is decentralization, right? Like you have billions of people all over the world who are affected by insane amounts of corruption and inflation, who it would be nice to have an alternative source of your, storing your wealth. And for most of these people, they're either forced to use local banks or they're forced to rely on their local government, which doesn't usually turn out so well. My favorite example would be Nigeria. Over 200 million people live there, and they said a snake ate $2 billion worth of taxpayer money. Like, obviously that didn't happen. And during SARS protests, which was over the pandemic, they would just freeze people's bank accounts, and then they couldn't feed their families. So like, yes, in the United States, we don't really have to worry about these things, but we're playing around with it the most because decentralization is still so expensive, right? I still have to pay so much per transaction, but you still have over 30 million people in a country with a total population of 200 million people and an average GDP per capita of $2,400 using crypto on a daily basis, right? So to me, yes, I see that as the main value proposition today. But at the same time, yeah, it's not that much capital, but hey, how are we going to continue to push this envelope? And we need to just keep innovating on how are we going to make this more seamless for users and how are we going to lower the financial barrier to entry?
Yeah, I think the innovation part is the most, I mean, I'm a nerd, right? So that's part that gets me the most excited. I'm like, all right, what can I do with this technology that I couldn't do before, right? Then like the list there is pretty small at first glance, but if you get creative, you can find some ways to use it that hasn't been done before. Like in Dungeon Miners, the game runs itself by putting together the output of a hashing algorithm that somebody runs on their computer, right? And that's a really, really nerdy concept, but all you have to do is connect your wallet, hit start mining, and the game, and that's it, right? The game runs. It's more complicated than that, but like I couldn't do that in a way that would be as cool on Web 2, because I could say like, oh, I'm gonna run this hashing algorithm and stuff, and it runs on my server, and you just have to trust that your character is gonna have these randomly generated things, right? And the trust part of it is like, yeah, I take these 64 characters, numbers and letters, and I turn it into this thing. And then that you can look at and experience, and then when someone else does what I just did, creates a new character, their output combines with mine to make something new, and it continues to like evolve as people like play the game, because it takes the concept of the blockchain, where the block that comes after this one, you can verify it came after this one because the hash is matched and blah, 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 and applies it in this way that on NFTs it hasn't been done before. And that like, it was cool for me to build that because I'm like, oh, it's innovative, it's new. I haven't seen anyone do this before. And now that it's built, I'm like, what else can I do that's new and interesting and is something that wasn't afforded to me before, right? And I think that there's a lot of opportunity out there to do some really cool things if people start thinking outside the box instead of being like, how can I do this Web 2 thing with Web 3? It's more, what can I do here that I couldn't do over here? And how do I turn that into something that people actually want to engage with and use and build? And that's my personal prism that I view it through, but there's different ways to approach this space and be successful, but that's kind of my core gut feeling is like, I want to build stuff. I want to do cool things. I want to do innovative things. How do I do that? So I guess, not that you should take advice from me, but if you're looking to get into the space, like my advice would be like, just build something because you like it and you think it's cool. And if you put enough passion into it, other people will jump on board.
I'll emphasize that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think our time is up. I don't want to go past, but it was a pleasure sharing the stage with you all and, hearing what you guys are doing. So,
cool.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for the time and space.
Thank you, everyone.